Is tech a safe investment? If you just autistically look at the charts and the data from the past 10 to 20 years of financial markets, you would rightfully come to the conclusion that technology stocks and the tech industry at large is a must when it comes to investing, and that you should put over half of your portfolio into technology, if not a lot more. However, I think a big thing that autistic approach ignores is what the tech industry actually is and where it's potentially going long term in the future due to political and spiritual reasons. We've been over this before on my channel where I think that a lot of the finance sector at large ignores the political and spiritual issues around said industries that they're investing in, mainly because they're just autistically obsessed with numbers. Well, if line is going up, surely that line is going to continue to go up no matter what, because that's just the latest trend, and that's obviously what's going to happen. And that's just not the case. Real life is going to come crashing down on your little numbers sheet. And you have to take this into account if you're going to be a sensible long-term investor rather than a short-term investor. And see my video on why you should not be a short-term investor if you are thinking about short-term investing. So where is tech likely going to go in the long term? Well, anyone who's got a pair of eyes at the moment can see that tech is going down a pretty dark road at the moment. And it was always inevitably going to happen. I mean, philosophers were seeing this hundreds of years ago, that eventually, machines would become demonic and it would start to become an existential spiritual threat to the soul. And so that really has to be taken into account when you're thinking about investing in these tech stocks. In that, in 10 to 20 years' time, the tech industry could either face a massive downturn or it could just be completely wiped out by God himself. I mean, it's entirely unknown as to what's going to happen at this stage. But either way, I would say tech stocks in general and just getting involved in the tech industry is a very risky game at the moment. It's more risky than people think. I mean, I've been looking at the S&P 500 as a potential investment to make, not this year, but next year. And I'm starting to wonder if I might reconsider it. I might not. I'm going to hold off on it for a year's time just to see how the market performs. But one thing that I have learned recently about the S&P 500 is that most of the S&P 500 is carried by tech companies. It's carried by Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. And they make up like 90% of the S&P 500. The remaining 5% is just, random businesses that are all operating at a loss because our economy is completely fucked. And so really, if you look at things like the S&P 500 and you think they're incredibly safe investments that can only keep going up and up, that is a correct interpretation to make if you are looking at the charts from 20 years ago to today. But the people who are looking at those charts from 20 years ago to today and just predicting that the line's going to keep going up and up, they're ignoring the situations that have gone on in those past 20 years. I mean, what have we seen in the past 20 years? At the dawn of the new millennium, we had the 2000s, and everyone was basically just sleepwalking in the 2000s. The 2000s was a decade of degeneracy, of watching television, of doing nothing but your 9-to-5 job. The 2000s was peak depression. And we also saw, obviously, the 2008 financial crash during the 2000s, which was basically an admission from the system that the current economic system doesn't work, and it's propped up on magical fantasies that will never work. And so I think if you do go all in on tech at the moment, you are playing into those magical fantasies. And, well, arguably, they're not even magical. They're actually quite bleak and disappointing. I mean, if you look at this meme here that I've made, the path to light and happiness the path to joy and enjoying yourself is the path that diverges away from this technocratic dystopia that we're inching ever closer and closer towards. And I think it's worth bearing in mind right now that we are currently on the precipice of this issue where it's going to go one way or another. It already has been going one way or another since 2020. I mean, you can see that, during the 2020 situation, we had issues around, the government potentially controlling us all through digital identities like they've got in China. Do you really want to put all of your investment money into a Chinese-style society that looks like, what the CCP have currently got right now with social credit scores and, big tracking and everything like that? Do you really want that to be the future? I know financial people just look at numbers and make their decisions based on those numbers. But if you look at it from this more spiritual perspective, then I think you're most likely going to foresee things that a lot of people in the financial markets aren't going to foresee. Now, as for what I've invested so far only into a mutual fund with Barclays, and I've only got 5,000 in that investment. The biggest proportion of my portfolio at the moment is in safe bank bonds with a 1-year fixed bond of 15,000 with Barclays. And the reason I've done that is because mainly at the moment, the markets are so unbelievably volatile and we're at such a crossroads in history that I think it is very dangerous to play the risky game at the moment. I know young people love to play the risky game. I'm a young person myself, but the risky game at the moment is probably just a little bit too risky to play. You don't want to throw all of your money onto these Facebook, Apple, and Google stocks and have them all blow up in your face. So what's the solution here? Because obviously, we want to be sensible around investing in technology stocks. We don't want to get too crazy with them, but we also don't want to miss out completely. I mean, there is still money to be made within the next, 2 to 5 years potentially in these tech stocks. I would say the approach you should take then is to use my risk score system that I've outlined in a previous video and probably assign individual tech stocks to a risk score of 4 and maybe assign the S&P 500 to either a 3 or a 3.5 just based on the idea that the S&P 500 isn't actually 500 top companies. It's actually just 5 tech companies and 495 businesses that are failing. And outside of finances, you should also make sure that you're not jumping on technology as a complete idiot. You should make sure that you've got your spiritual affairs in order, that you know who you are as an individual. Don't fall for this Reddit atheist mentality that you're just a cog in a machine and that your life is worthless. Because if you truly believe that, then you should just kill yourself right now. I mean, seriously, if you seriously believe your life is just whoopsie, oops, universe just shat its pants and the shit happens to be you, but don't worry, it'll be cleaned up soon. If that's your mentality, then, why don't you just clean yourself up now and kill yourself? No, the truth is that God has a plan for you, that there is a spiritual reason for your existence. There is deep down. Everyone does deep down. That's why what I just outlined there is philosophically absurd. And remember, when it comes to finances are a companion to your life, and your life should be focused around spirituality and love and joy and happiness and all those great things. And finances should be a companion to that. Finances shouldn't dominate your life. To summarize this market prediction, like I've said in the video throughout, just don't go all in on tech stocks. You can have some tech stocks. I've got some tech stocks in my mutual fund, but just be very careful and don't go all in. Don't be afraid to put in a big chunk of your money into some safe bonds that are going to be absolutely fine. Because while you may get all these tech bros going, oh, you're missing out, bro, you're missing out, Amazon's gone up 10x, Apple's gone up 10x. All these tech bros are going to look like complete morons in 5 years when God comes down with a mighty fist and smashes Lucifer into oblivion, and in turn smashes all these tech stocks and tech companies into a trillion pieces because they need to be wiped out to preserve the future of the human race.